Reparations. The relief system for the worst injustices is not foreign to the United States. Native Americans have received land and billions of dollars for various concessions and programs for forcible deportation from their own lands. The Japanese Americans were given $1.5 billion to those who survived World War II as well. In addition to that, the United States, through the Marshall Plan, helped ensure that the Jewish people received compensation for the Holocaust, including making various investments over time. In 1952, West Germany agreed to pay 3.45 billion marks to Holocaust survivors. The only group that did not receive compensation for state-sanctioned racial discrimination was Black America, while on the other hand, slavery gave some white families the potential to gain enormous wealth. Furthermore, we should note that American slavery was particularly brutal. About 15% of the slaves sent from West Africa died during transportation. The enslaved were constantly beaten and crushed. Slavery also disrupted families, with 1 in 3 marriages breaking up and 1 in 5 children being separated from their parents. Litigation for damages can be made on economic, social, and moral grounds. The United States had many opportunities to make amends for slavery. Each missed an opportunity to make the American dream come true, but has not yet taken significant action. 40 acres and a mule should have made amends for slavery after the Civil War. Union leaders, including General William Sherman, decided that each African American family should receive 40 acres. Sherman signed Field Order 15 and allocated 400,000 acres of confiscated federal land to black families. In addition, some families have to get donkeys left over from the war. So, that's the saying, 40 acres and a mule. However, after the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln, President Andrew Johnson amended Field Order 15 to return the land to former slave owners. Instead of providing means for blacks to support themselves, federal slaves empowered former slaves. In Washington, D.C., for example, slave owners were compensated for property they actually lost, formerly enslaved. This practice was not just in the capital, but also in nearby states. Many African Americans with limited employment options returned as partners to slave owners who had once been slaves to the same land. Slave owners not only made money from the slavery of black Americans, they made many times as much money from the land that they had no choice but to work for the formerly enslaved. There's never a bad time to do what is morally right, but the United States has the prime opportunity to make amends for slavery. In the 1930s, the United States withdrew from the 1929 stock market crash and plunged into a deep recession. The Franklin Roosevelt administration implemented a series of policies as part of its new contract law, which was estimated to cost about $50 billion. Nowadays, it would be estimated to be around $50 trillion. However, 2 of the New Deal specific policies have slowed down in addressing America's racial misconduct: the GI Bill and Social Security. Although white and black Americans fought in World War II, black soldiers were not able to regain post-war benefits like their white counterparts. The bill was forced into the federal system, which was implemented domestically. With regards to Social Security, 2 major industries in the United States that have improved equity are exempt from domestic and farm labor law. These shortcomings are not uncommon in the U.S. effectively expelled 60% of blacks across the country and 70% of those in southern states who worked in these industries. There are other policies and practices that have contributed to the racial wealth gap. The Homestead Act of 1862 prevented African Americans from being able to acquire wealth at a rate similar to that of whites as allowed by the government in reform, control agreements, and criminal leasing. Separate from slavery, African American people affected by these policies and practices must be compensated.